Mike Cardano with Roto Experts in the Fantasy Sports Network. With the NFL season now officially underway and your fantasy teams already drafted, it's time now to talk about managing your roster from week to week, whether that means start and sits or plucking some guys from your waiver wire. Now with us today is noted sports talk show host and wagering guru, Gabriel Morency, who's going to shed some light on what information folks who are adept on taking part in props find useful in playing the game of fantasy football. Not that any of you fantasy addicts actually ever bet on a game or anything like that. You find Gabe right here on the Fantasy Sports Network hosting Game Time Decisions every weekday at 3 and 5 p.m. Eastern. You can catch him on sportsragetv.com, and in fact, Gabe is liable to pop up on a screen in front of you just about anytime, anywhere, saying just about anything. Now on Wednesday, I caught Gabe on Off the Record with Michael Landsberg as part of some sort of celebrity panel where, among other things, he opined that NHL players were smarter than NFL players. He backed it up too. Gabe, what's going on, buddy?
Yeah, I'm doing great, Mike. Thanks for tuning in to OTR. Yeah, that's one argument that I'm not sure I'd take to the Supreme Court, that NHL players are smarter than NFL players. But I settled on they seem to attack their wives a hell of a lot less in the NHL. So that's why I gave them. That's why they passed my class, Mike. It was because they seem to assault their spouses less. So I deem them to be smarter.
Well, in some respects, the argument worked. You convinced me, you know?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's funny. I've been getting into this with Feinberg, our producer at the Fantasy Sports Network, and he's telling me because hockey players generally haven't gone to college, and that's not true. Because there's a ton of NHL guys that have played NCAA hockey. He said, well, you know, since they haven't gone to college, you know, NFL guys, even though they didn't graduate, at least, you know, they were at university, which, you know, I think is a pretty weak argument, actually, when you consider, you know, my favorite line ever, I think, is Eldon Campbell. Remember Eldon Campbell? Yeah. You know, former Clemson Tiger, longtime Laker. He was in the NBA for like 13, 14 years or whatever. One day Eldon Campbell was asked, hey, Eldon, did you earn your degree at Clemson? And he said, no, but they gave it to me anyways.
Yeah, that's how it works. That's how it works. All right, now before we get started on the fantasy football talk, I just want to set the stage and make clear what's at stake in our weekly pilgrimage here. Now, Gabe has been gracious enough to have me on as a guest on his show each week, and somehow, the two of us were stupid enough to enter into a wager on whether or not the Kansas City Royals would make the playoffs, with the loser having to wear one of these on the air. Now, we've got about 20 to 25 games left on the Major League Baseball regular season calendar, depending on the team you're looking at. And so with that, Gabe, why don't you tell the viewers, A, what you were thinking agreeing to the wager, and 2, how do you feel about your chances right now?
Well, I got to be honest, Mike. I thought that you had some sort of perverse desire to actually want to wear this thing. And I was like, all right. And, you know, you gave me a bunch of propositions that I was able to choose from. And I really could have buried you early just by taking the Houston Astros not to finish with a 500 mark, or even the Marlins. But I wanted to make it interesting. And what's ironic about this is I picked the Kansas City Royals to win the division before the year started. But out of anger and out of spite, I abandoned ship. And I figured that if I was going to go down, at least I could get any sort of amusement out of this. It would be to have to make you wear that abomination. But man, I swear, Mike, I mean, you know, you should move to Las Vegas, because ever since you made that bet, the Royals never lose. And it's to the point now where I don't just get texts; I'm getting tweets from buddies, and I'm getting phone calls from people asking me if I got the Speedo yet, if I even know where to find it. And I'm going to be honest, I don't even know where to find this thing. But the Detroit Tigers, it looks like the Tigers got their second win, Mike. We see Oakland and Anaheim and Seattle winning games. This thing's coming right down to the wire, and I'm pretty concerned, man. I'm a pretty pale white dude. Like, I'm going to have to do something. I'm thinking if I wear it, I might there might be a catch. I might have like a tan bodysuit or something like that on underneath. Yeah,
well, pale doesn't not my problem here, but I'm certainly been dieting. All right, we're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, Gabe is going to give us some words of wisdom on how to translate what he does in the betting world to what we do here in the fantasy world. We'll be right back.
Want to win your fantasy football league? Well, then you're going to need Roto Experts and our roster of 52 fantasy professionals. Our premium package is the industry's best. We offer rankings, cheat sheets, sleepers, breakouts, and busts. You can wallow in fantasy mediocrity by going at it alone or taste victory with our help for just pennies a day. Go to rotoexperts.com now, enter the code WORD for a special discount, and begin your journey to fantasy success.
All right, we're back with Gabriel Morency here. Now, in fantasy baseball, it's common for participants to factor in game over-under lines when choosing pitchers or deciding if they want to stack offensive players. Now, with regard to fantasy football, Gabe, what published information does the wagering community put out that you feel is useful information in helping determine either who to roster, who to start and sit, or what defenses to use? What is it that you use to bet on games that people could also use to their advantage in fantasy football?
Well, first off, I think finally, I'm really happy to see that the gap between the fantasy sports player and the gambler is actually really, really shrinking, and it's always been a hell of a lot smaller than people realize. I mean, fantasy players and gamblers, I was thinking about this, they're sort of like Mormons and Mennonites here, Mike. It's different, but it's still the same. You're still part of the same religion, just a little bit different. And you've got to knowledge is key here. And I think that too many times in the old days, coming up, and I've been in the sports gaming industry for literally since I was about 13, 14 years old. And I'm 44 right now. So I started playing parlays when I was 12 years old. Not that I encourage that, kids, but I'm just stating I've been around this a long time. So I've seen the development of fantasy sports and gambling and the marriage sort of come into sort of morph. And I had Mark Lawrence on the show the other day. And Mark Lawrence is a handicapper. The guy's been around forever. Like really, he's been one of the top handicappers in the business. For a good 25 years right now. And Lawrence brought up the other night on my program how he loves the daily fantasy. And this is what it comes down to, because as a sports gambler, we sort of have the image of Jimmy Vaccaro in Vegas with the cigar and the fedora and wise guys and all that. This doesn't work like that. We're all betting against computers nowadays. The man, when we say we're going to beat the book, we're going to beat the man. We're beating the computer, and it's not always easy to beat a computer. I think that you look at the daily fantasy stuff right now, and I'm talking to so many handicappers, Mike, that they're into the daily fantasy stuff because they're playing against other people as opposed to the computers, similar to a poker player.
Well, they get to take advantage of emotion, right? The computer's got no emotion.
Exactly. You go to a casino, you start playing blackjack, you're playing against the house. You're playing a slot machine, you're playing against the house and a machine. You're playing daily fantasy, suddenly you're playing against somebody else. And people have more weaknesses than computers. I hate to admit it. So that's one angle that the sports gamblers have really, really gotten into and attacked. I mean, you look at Ben Burns just recently won $300K on FanDuel. Ben Burns is a handicapper. Wasn't known as a fantasy guru, so to speak, but is a handicapper. Honestly, I think a lot of the fantasy guys sort of discount handicappers and sort of think, these guys are just betting on the game, and these guys that are betting on the game actually are idiots or don't know what's going on with the players within the game. But you're exactly right when you mention the totals. So the first thing that I did this week, Mike, when looking at who I want to play, a good example is I've got Antonio Brown on my fantasy team. I also have Crabtree. I got Crabtree on my bench. Crabtree will be playing for me this week. I'd rather have Michael Crabtree running around against the Dallas Cowboy defense than Antonio Brown against the Cleveland Brown defense. And one of the first things I did, as you mentioned, I looked at the totals this week. If I'm looking for action, I'm looking for some fantasy impact. It's not going to happen in a football game that's 7-6 or 10-7. So right off the top, I found the 4-5 game with the highest totals. It's one of the biggest barometers that we attack right away. And it's interesting because last night I was a moron and I had the Seahawks and the Packers against the Seahawks. But I had Jake Seeley on the program, and I said it. Well, I said, I'm taking the Packers plus the points, but as a big piece of insurance here, I'm taking Marshawn Lynch over 84.5 yards. I hate to use the term free money, but it was. So for me, personally, and as somebody that pretty much plays every big game, for me, the fantasy props it's a great piece of insurance almost. It's like, yeah, I got the Packers, but Marshawn Lynch is going to be successful. I had Doug Baldwin last night, over 3.5 catches. I think I won that in the first half.
Well, are you somebody, now I know you have hindsight to your benefit here, but are you somebody, if you had Aaron Rodgers on your roster, would have not started him last night? Clearly he's an elite fantasy quarterback. Would you have shied away because of the metrics that you look at from the wagering point of view?
Yeah, not really, because last night was interesting, Mike, because, last night it was kind of a perception going in there. Well, listen, it's Seattle. Toughest place to play on the road. They have the most false, they create the most false start penalties, and you got a rookie center out of Ohio State. Yeah, I don't really think it was the rookie center so much that was the problem last night. I think the problem was the Green Bay Packers couldn't stop the run. Aaron Rodgers didn't play well last night, but no, I wasn't, I was kind of naive. I thought Rodgers would have a better game than he did. I thought that he would attack the Seahawks secondary more. Look at his numbers and his yards per attempt, Mike. Yeah, they were absolutely pathetic, and that's the number one stat that gamblers generally use. Just for the record, to throw that out there, people aren't aware we're talking about numbers. Yards per attempt with a quarterback. That's how you're going to get a nice judge and gauge. You'll be able to judge just how productive an offense is attempting to be. 9 of 18 for 92 yards, not very good, obviously. One point last night, Rodgers was like 14 of 19 for 85 yards. That's E.J. Manuel in a preseason game, Mike. Yeah. That's nice completions, dink and dunk, but you're not having an impact on a game. I thought Rodgers would play better than he did. I got into this with Pat Mayo last week about Rodgers being the best player in the NFL, and I said, Rodgers is a great quarterback, but I don't hesitate from calling him the best player in the National Football League. And I'm just burning. I know I'm rambling now, but I'm so angry that Aaron Rodgers didn't pick up that first down.
He should have run the ball. He should have run the ball.
He had it. I don't understand it. Mike, it's like you're about to score at home plate, and you turn around and go back to third base when the ball is still in the outfield. Like, I don't understand what the hell he was thinking.
Well, it's called. I got a broken collarbone doing this last year. I'm not doing it again.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So this is what it's come. This is what it's come to. Aaron Rodgers is now Peyton Manning. Aaron Rodgers is now that old man star quarterback that, hey, I'm dating Olivia Nunn. I can't get hurt. It drives me crazy. But long story short, the total was steaming last night, Mike. The total opened up at 45. You would think, Seattle at home, they only give up 14 points a game. They played 2 years ago. It was 14-12 and that replacement debacle on the Monday night, etc. Yet the steam went up over the over. I actually thought last night it was going to be a statistically high-impact fantasy game. I really did. But I got concerns as far as the Packers are concerned. Eddie Lacy obviously gets hurt. It's one game. But I'm wondering about the wide receiver situation here, Mike. How much impact can he really have with Nelson and Cobb? Say what you will about these guys over the years with your Finleys and your Joneses and your Jennings, etc. Eventually it catches up, Mike, and I'm wondering if they have enough horses to catch the football, or it's just going to be sort of what the Patriots have become, where with Brady not scaring anybody. Dink and dunk, throw your little 5-yard slant, whatever. Do it 22 times and go down the field on us. And we see it doesn't happen because they don't have that deep down the field threat. I look at the Packers offense and I don't see that deep downfield threat right now.
Right. Okay. Real quick, because we're short on time here. Are there any other metrics that you use, prominent metrics in wagering, that fantasy players could use to help choose who to start and sit, or looking for somebody to pluck off their waiver wire?
No, I was really trying to come up with a cute answer for you, and I knew what the subject was coming in here, but I hate to, and I don't hate to admit it, but the fact is, I think the fantasy helps the gamer more than the other way around. I think the numbers within the numbers help the gamer more than the other way around. And I actually think the sports gambler / fantasy player, I find a lot of the fantasy guys, they're too number driven. They don't understand that these guys go to strip clubs. They don't understand that these guys have marital problems. They don't understand that these guys are hungover. They don't understand that these guys have financial issues. And there's a cycle of a season. So So I'm a big believer in that. Like I'm a big believer in what's
You're a big
going
believer
on
of having those problems? What are you a big believer of?
Well, I'm a big believer in knowing that has impact people because, I've had those problems, Mike. So, yes, I do. But I think the personal element, actually, that's the one thing that I think the fantasy guys sometimes, they're not watching the games enough. They're not following the nuances enough of the day-to-day play. But ultimately, I think the fantasy aspect has helped the sports gambler more. I really do. The numbers within the numbers have helped the gambler a little bit more. Sports gambling information used to kind of just be, kind of prehistoric. This team has this, X record on the road, etc. But with the fantasy numbers within numbers, the first 5 inning props, and there's so many numbers that you can break down that you have at your disposal right now. That I think it helps. The gambler more than the fantasy player, to be honest.
Interesting. All right, Gabe, thanks for taking a few minutes out of your schedule for us today. If you've got last-minute roster questions or concerns, hit me up on Twitter @MikeCardano, and I'll see if I can help you out. Enjoy your weekend, everyone. I'll see you right back here Monday on the Fantasy Sports Network.